This is Rob Tubbett for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined for the first time by Javan Sugar Hill Steward. Are you okay there, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you? I'm trying to stay focused doing the interview because I hear Tyson Fury out there singing Viva Las Vegas.
I'd imagine you've probably heard a little bit of Tyson Fury singing over the last few weeks.
I have, and I've been singing myself now. Discovered some new and hidden talents in myself as far as in the singing department, as a songwriter and as a comedian.
The Gypsy King been rubbing off on you?
Yes, I can say a little bit, but you know, I've been more of a comedian my whole life since I can remember. I was in the 8th grade, so that would make me like 13, 14 years old, something like that. At that time, I was a class clown and pretty funny, so it's just awakening my old senses.
From class clown to trainer of the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, you're working with Tyson Fury for the first time in an official capacity going into this fight, but of course you have met years ago previously. Just talk to us a little bit about the first time you came into contact with Tyson Fury.
My first time coming in contact with Tyson Fury was at the Crunk Gym in Detroit, 2010. I'm in the gym minding my own business. I hear somebody hollering at the front door, hollering, fresh meat, fresh meat. Ah, yeah, fresh meat. And then I'm not really paying attention. I see this big white guy, so I'm just like, maybe he's coming to buy some T-shirts or something like that, buy some merchandise. And then Bam was like, hey, Sherelle, talking about he want to be the next heavyweight champion of the world. Then Tyson, yeah, I'm Tyson Fury. I'm the next heavyweight champion of the world. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. You know, because everybody comes into the gym just about with dreams of being a world champion. So at that time, Vladimir Klitschko was world champion. So I was like, nah, Vladimir's the champ, you know. So watching Tyson Fury train and shadow box and hit the bag and stuff, I was really interested in seeing him box, you know, spar, to be in the ring with somebody, because a lot of times people can shadow box, hit the bag, oh, they look like a world beater, look like a world champion, like nobody could beat them. And then when they get in the ring with real punches coming at them, they turn into a different person as well. So Tyson Fury on the inside of that ring was doing the same things that he was doing on the bag and shadow boxing, which was very impressive, especially for a man 6'9", being from Great Britain inside the world famous Crunk Gym, where there's a lot of rhythm and soul, and he was the big rhythm and soul.
How quickly did you know? I'm assuming from what you've just said, it potentially was the first sparring session. Is that how soon you knew you were dealing with a special fighter?
At that point, I did know he was special, but not knowing how special. That was just the first day. I don't have those senses like Emmanuel, where he can say, hey, right away, I know. Even Emmanuel had to talk to people and, you know, fill them out, and then he can give his assessment and his judgment. And his judgment was, you know, Tyson Fury being the dominant heavyweight in the future.
You mentioned Emmanuel, of course, the late, great Emmanuel Steward, arguably one of the greatest boxing coaches of all time. I'm sure we could speak for a number of hours about the influences that he's had on your career, but if you could pick just one influence that Emmanuel's had on your career or had on you as a person, what would it be?
Basic boxing. And treat people how you want to be treated. Can't get no bigger than that.
Andy Lee told me a story about... he told me that Emmanuel influenced everything he did within boxing, but also from things like folding his clothes and how he did his laundry and things like that. Did he have the same sort of influence on you?
Yes, because Emmanuel was more like my father. I spent most of my life living with him. When I was a teenager, I lived with him, and then as an adult, I lived with him for many years. And I've learned a lot, because those are, you know, that was somebody to look up to. That was somebody, he was a positive male role model in my life. In my family, it was a boy every generation. Emmanuel was the only boy in his generation. And the next generation, he had no boys, and then I was the only boy in that next generation. So naturally, everything I was doing was, you know, based upon Emmanuel as being that positive, that shouldn't even have to say positive, but just that male role model in my life. That's who my family talked about. They talked about, you know, Emmanuel, your Uncle Emmanuel, Uncle Emmanuel, Emmanuel. So yeah, naturally, that's the person who I'm going to be looking at, to try to model myself after. And he meant a lot to me, as I know I did to him. As as far as even still now continuing the legacy and him being able to see me following his footsteps.
Is that an added pressure? Do you look at it as a pressure, having to continue his legacy?
I don't look at it any pressure. I've been doing this my whole life. Being around Crunk and the winning tradition, that's all I know is winning from being around Crunk since I was a little boy. And I'm just doing what he taught me how to do and doing what I saw him do. I've been doing it and been a very successful amateur coach, bringing the Crunk amateur team back to the forefront and back to the number one team in boxing a few years back. And held it down for some years, and that's what Emmanuel always was saying, that I revitalized the Crunk amateur team in the 2000s. So it's no added pressure to me. It's just me doing it on another level, which I'm comfortable with, and which I've been around my whole life. I remember being at the old Olympia Stadium as a young kid. I don't know how old I was, but I've been involved in boxing heavily since then because for all what it's worth, I was the water boy at that time. I remember, Emmanuel working the corners, and I wanted to be around him, so I'm sitting like very close to him while he's working the corner, and the water bottles would get empty, and those were the old glass bottles with tape wrapped around them. And I remember one day, he was giving me the bottle. Can you go get the water fountain? I had to go out the arena into the concession area to go get some water from the water fountain and bring that bottle back for the corner before the next round started. So that's 3 minutes I had to be back. And I did that. And, I wanted to be successful. I wanted him to be proud of me, to knowing I could go get that water and bring it back because it was a glass. And, it was important to him. I know the fighters needed that water come next round when the bell rings. So that's really how I started my career off. Being under Emmanuel, was going to get water in between rounds.
Emmanuel was credited with really revolutionising kind of the modern era of heavyweights with the work they did with Lennox Lewis, obviously coming back off defeats. Vladimir Klitschko coming back, that's Mr. Fury again in the background, coming back off several defeats. And really, it really did scare me a little bit.
You heard something say, "Bomb Squad."
No, that'll be probably tomorrow. But we've seen the work that Emmanuel did with Lennox Lewis. Radical is probably not the right word, but significant changes to Lennox's style, significant changes to Vladimir Klitschko's style. Have you been implementing significant changes into Tyson's style? Or admittedly, he's a significantly different fighter to those two?
When we want to know.
If you tell me now, I promise not to tell anybody.
We'll see February the 22nd if I've made some radical, not radical, but dramatic changes in Tyson Fury. It'll be for you guys to decide. I already know what changes have been made, and he knows what's been made, and the rest of the camp and team knows what's been made. But maybe we're just seeing things. Maybe we just it's just a big illusion for us. We want it to be a change, and we want it to be something so significant and so great that we're fooling ourselves.
How dangerous of an opponent is Deontay Wilder?
What's Deontay Wilder's record? He's what, 40-0-1, and he's knocked out 38 of those people. That's how dangerous he is.
Experience of working in the Kronk gym, we see Tommy Hearns and Gerald McClellan, that big backhand power right hand. Is that kind of, Tyson has said it himself, that kind of way of training and that knowing that type of power punches, he says, has played into his hands. Would you agree with that?
That's what he wants to do. He wants to knock Deontay Wilder out. So the Kronk style and technique is to knock out those big, powerful right hands or setting up a hook. Most of what it is just setting up what you want. You can whatever you can set up. If you can throw it hard, then that's what punches are going to do the damage. I think they're leaving me. It's got real quiet out there.
It has got very quiet, and if Tyson's around,
they're forgetting about me for
I'm sure they're not forgetting about you. But before we go, because we will wrap it up here, what can we expect to see on Saturday night? I'm assuming that you've watched the first fight several.
Second round knockout, Tyson Fury standing hands up in the air, victorious, because that's what he said. I believe him.
Did you feel like he won the first fight?
My feelings don't count. Everybody's been asking that question. My feelings don't count because it was a draw. Tyson felt he won. Millions of people thought that Tyson won, so he didn't win. It was a draw. And that's why we're here right now with this big fight, in the making since Tyson saying since 1971. Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. That's how big it is. The build up.
Very exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Javon Sugar Hill, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing So.
Just Sugar Hill.
Sugar Hill Steward.
No Javon. No Javon.
Clear that up for some people, for people who are watching.
To clear it up, the name is Sugar Hill. Sugar Hill Steward is not Javon. It's not Javine. It's not whatever else you're trying to pronounce. It's not it. It's just Sugar Hill. Sugar Hill Steward or Sugar or Hill, but not the J word. Thank you.
Sugar Hill Steward, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. Thanks.